Every year that comes up, I think, what are the risks I'm taking this year? What are the things I'm doing that I could publicly fail at? What are the things I've been doing that could cost us money, that could cost us market share, that could really hurt us as a business? Those are the things I need to do. Otherwise, we're going to fail. And I think about that in my life as well. What are the things I'm scared of that I need to take in risks so I can feel more fulfilled, feel more proud of myself? And so I got back, I started doing that stuff. I still do that to this day. But it also got to a point where my vision of the future and Dan's vision of the future were different. And let's be honest, you know, two different people, each one always has their own agenda. And Dan has kind of one main agenda, and he's very clear about this. He wants to put numbers on the board, which means he wants, one number is what Dan is all about, which is now over $1 trillion. And that's the total net value and equity that he has created through mentoring individuals. So if you're a guy like Rick Scott, who is now a senator, a US senator, was the governor of Florida, he created Columbia Healthcare and created, I think, $15 billion worth of wealth. Dan mentored him, gave him, I think, the idea to go into healthcare. So Dan wants to create wealth. That's a metric of his success. The more wealth he creates, the more that he can feel like he's done something important, and he can argue pretty easily now that he is the greatest high-performance coach of all time. That's the deal. That's what $1 trillion means, by the way. People are like, he's not worth $1 trillion, he's not worth $1 billion. He's not talking about his net wealth. Dan hasn't tried to make money for himself in 27 years when he got thrown out of Gulf Western, which was the oil company that he started and then took public and then got thrown out. And so he doesn't really try to make money for himself. He doesn't find that very interesting. I'm sure Dan would be worth 10 billion plus right now if he actually did that, but he doesn't. So he's creating wealth for other people. But it also means that's his metric. My metric is to do something in my life that I find fulfilling, that makes a difference. So for me, that was taking London Real and making it into something that was changing the world, that was changing people's lives, that was causing this mass scale transformation of humanity. That was my goal. My goal wasn't to turn it into $1 billion business. And so this is where Dan and I start to diverge, because Dan says, Brian, why aren't you going harder? Why are you screwing around? Why are you even talking on camera? You just want to be liked. Why are you talking to these losers? And I was like, but Dan, that's what I want to do because that's my mission. And he was like, well, that's wrong. You should be making money. And Dan always says, he says, money's not the only thing, but it's the only thing that people keep track of. Which, if you actually think about that statement, it's ridiculous because it's not the only thing you keep track of. But when he says it, it sounds plausible. So look, Dan is one of the best out there, and you have to be careful when he says those things because sometimes they don't always align in your interests. But of course, in the long run, they often do. Because Dan ultimately, deep down inside, wants you to be the best version of yourself. That's it. And he does that quite selflessly. Even though when I tell him he's like Mother Teresa, he's the first to deny that and say, no, I'm selfish. I'm a horrible person. I just want my numbers on the board. And so this is where Dan and I start to disagree. And this is where I push back on Dan and I start thinking to myself, I don't want to do it his way. And here's a short piece from the movie, The $50 Billion Man, which you can watch on our website for free, about me telling Dan how I really feel.
As I continued building London Real, I soon realized I had a problem. Turning your passion into a business is much harder than it looks. When I was a banker, all I had to do was get the deals done. That was easy. Broadcasting was much more complicated. It forced me to ask hard questions. How am I going to keep my message true and still earn money? Why am I doing this? To help billions of people change their lives or to make billions of dollars? I struggled to see how I could do both at the same time. I found myself in a dangerous game of dancing with my shadow. One false move, and my entire ethos goes out the window. And along with it, London Real. And there was another big problem. Dan and his 1 year of free mentorship.
Constant supervised stress. If somebody had a gun to your daughter's head and said, Brian, we need results out of the reelers, you'd think a lot differently about it. So I put a lot of pressure on the kids to perform because I know they can perform. I want results. I want results for you more than you want. Because I know what you're capable of. If you want a friend, buy a fucking dog.
I had enough. No more mentoring. No more QLA. No more damn Pena. I quit. He's driving me insane. He wanted more. It's never enough for the old man. He's going to destroy everything I created. I am not Dan Pena. He just wants London Real to be another one of his businesses. Another trophy. Another billion. But Dan Pena never quits.
And now the tension starts. Honestly, I think one of the reasons that people find my journey with Dan Pena so intriguing is because this story is in our DNA. It's something that you might read about in the Bible. It's the classic father-son story. It's the classic elder versus the young story, where the elder knows more and is trying to guide the younger, and the younger thinks they know what they're doing. They know the new ways of doing things, and they think you're just a grumpy, stupid old man and you don't get me. And I honestly think that's why people stop me on the streets and talk about Dan Pena, because this is something they've seen played out in many aspects of their life, with their fathers, with their grandfathers, with older mentors. It could be with women as well. It's this whole younger versus older generation and what you can learn and not learn. And this is me pushing back. And the funny thing is that I've been on the other side of this now. I've been the Dan figure with my students in the academy, pushing them to start their businesses or build their podcasts or speak on stage or anything. I've done this with teammates to try to push them to be better in themselves. I've done this with my children. And at some point, they push back. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong. I'm right. And I remember being super young, and even in my teens, and not trusting anybody over 30 years old. Like, they definitely don't know what the hell they're talking about. So this is a classic narrative. It's in the DNA of human beings. And that's why I think this resonates with people. I really do.